Okay. All right. Okay. So let's just make sure we all know what user input is. User input, self-explanatory, just where you take an input from user during a program. A few basic things that you have to add to your program to do user input. Or you have to add this statement, import java.util.scanner at the very beginning of your program. We'll show you how that looks like in the next slide. And we're going to create scanner input equals new scanner system.in. So what this does is that just creates a scanner, and this is what you will use to collect user input. Also, let's note that input is a name, so it can be anything you want. All right, so here's what the program should look like. So we put import java.util.scan at the very beginning of your program before all the other stuff. And then we put scanner input, this line, in the main method. And the main method is just this line of code, public static void main string args. And you have to have this in your program if you want to execute anything or like print something out or whatever. All right, so we're going to teach you guys 4 ways to accept 4 different types of user input. And to accept an integer, just do input.next int. To accept a double or a decimal, input.next double. And if you want to accept a word or a string without spaces, it's very important, input.next. And to accept a line of words or like a sentence, just use input.next line. And input is just whatever your scanner name is, as I said before. And when you do this, don't forget to add the parentheses at the end of input.next, whatever. All right, so here's a quick example. Import java.util.scanner. Let's have all this stuff. Remember, this is the main method. So we're going to create a new scanner called input in this first line of code. And system.out.println just print something to the output section. And you print out, please enter an integer. And it just said your integer was input.next int. Don't forget the parentheses. And let's just pretend we entered 6. Here we just say please enter 1 word. Your word was blah, blah, or input.next. Let's just pretend we entered hello. And the output for this would be, it should look like this. And 6 is what you entered, so it could be a different number. And hello is also what we entered, so it could be a different number. All right, so I'm just going to quickly show you guys how to actually do user input in a separate window. Hopefully, can you guys see it? That I'm in like JDoodle. All right. All right, great, Tony. Thanks for telling me. All right, so at the very beginning of your program, we're just going to do import java.util, scanner, and then we can create new scanner. And let's just change it up so that you know that it can be anything you want, basically. All right, so these are 2 things you always have to add to your program to do user input. And oh wait, oh my god, okay. All right, so I'm just going to copy paste this example into this. And so in order to use user input, you need to turn this switch interactive mode and turn it on. And then, I mean, that's basically it. And then you just execute your program. It says, please enter an integer, just enter 6. And then make sure to press enter if you type in your input. And then it should say integer was 6, please enter 1 word. And let's say you're typing hello, right? But you actually have a spelling error and you go back to change it. So JDoodle kind of does this weird thing where it like tracks everything that you type. So you typed in hello, but you had a spelling error and you deleted it. But the deleted character is like JDoodle remembers and it'll include that. So, you know, when you do user input, just make sure to be precise when you do it and like, you know, try not to make any mistakes, I guess. And let's get back to the lesson slides. All right, so we've seen all this. All right, The next example is scanner input equals new scanner system.in. That's what we learned today. And here we say, please enter a sentence. So in order to take in a sentence, we need to use input.nextLine. And we set input.nextLine. Well, in this case would be today's a great day, because that's what we entered. We set that to a string variable called line of words. Okay, and then in the next slide, you say, please enter an integer. And then we'll create a variable called times, or we'll create an integer variable called times and set it to the next integer that you input. In this case, let's just say it's 4. Inputs our scanner name. Also, don't forget to include this period. I guess that. And then we use the for loop in explaining the first problem for today. So I'll just go through it again. You create a for loop. You create a integer counter variable called I. You set it to 0. You create a condition for I for the for loop to end. This could be I is less than times. Remember, times is equal to 4. And then this is just an increment statement, I++. It adds 1 to I after each iteration of the loop. Just system.out.println. We print out line of words, which is today is a great day. Also, in this last print statement, we have a few tricky things like these escape characters. So the last statement will print out system.out.println. You click this \n, it's just like an enter click. Like it just goes to the next line of code or the next line of output. We'll type in finish printing. And this / quotation marks just like takes this, it just prints out a quotation mark. So let's say you didn't have this, then it would just be a quotation mark here, and then you have like an odd quotation mark, and that would give you an error. But if you use the \, the program interprets this quotation mark as part of the string and not as like the quotes around the string. I hope that makes sense. All right, and then we just print out line of words, which is what? Today is a great day. And then plus, we have this / character again. And then we just add times, which is equal to 4, plus in quotation marks times, so it wouldn't be 4. It would just be like the actual word times. And our output should look like this. And so please enter a sentence, today is a great day. This is what you inputted to display what you inputted, and this is the for loop. And then the last line of code just be finish printing, today is a great day 4 times. Does that make sense? All right, so a few notes about user input. You have to enter your inputs in the same order as you code them, or else you get an exception. This exception is called the input mismatch exception, which occurs when a scanner receives the incorrect data type. So for those of you who might not know what exceptions are, they're just a type of error that occur during your program. Send one in the chat. Okay. And there are a bunch of types of exceptions. And the one we're learning today is input mismatch exception, I guess. But exception is just like an error, basically. And so how this occurs is like, let's say you said input.next in your program. And this means that the program is looking for an integer in what you input. But let's say you input like a letter or a string. Then since the program was looking for an integer, but you gave it a string, then the scanner receives the incorrect data type and you get this exception. Hold on. All right. When you type words for your inputs, it doesn't have to be in quotes. All right. Does everybody understand the exception concept? All right, let's go. All right. Move on. All right, so more knows about user input. Don't use input.nextLine after you use any of the other user input methods. So in other words, if you want to use input.nextLine to take in a sentence, you need to use it first, or else you get some weird stuff that like, you know, like nextLine won't print out, but if you use like input.next something else after input.nextLine, then it'll like mix everything up. It's just really complicated. So just like let's just treat it as an error. So just don't do this. All right. Also, it's good to print out a sentence before you ask the user something so that the user knows what you actually want from them. But it's not required. All right. So that was the lesson. Does anyone have any questions? So just like, all right. So number one, we're just going to say, what exception do we learn in class today? Just either explain how it occurs or write an example of it occurring. Just like write your program. What are the 4 code like implementations to take in the 4 different types of user input? So like, what is the code for taking in an integer, a string, a sentence, or a decimal number? Number 3 is pretty simple. Just find all the errors. There should be 12 in total. Number 4, just create a program that asks for the user's age, their favorite number, their favorite fruit, and then print them out. Also, make sure to include context for each of these questions when you print them out. For example, like if you want to print out their age, make sure to say age 41. I mean, they might not be 41, but that's just like an example. For number 5, just determine the output. It's a little bit tricky, so I guess just be careful on it. And number 6, just create a program where you're taking an integer and a double from the user, and then set them to variables, then print out their sum and product. That's it.
Yep, these are the practice problems, and just try them out to make sure that you know how to do the concept, and yeah, it should be great.